I remember that night like it was yesterday. I was sitting at this ridiculously fancy cafe in the heart of Harbor City checking my watch for the third time in 2 minutes. The kind of place where the marble counters shine like they've been kissed by the sun and the staff greet you by name. I'd never been stood up before, so every tick of the clock felt like an insult. My blind date set up by a sorority friend was already 20 minutes late, and I was fighting that awful mix of embarrassment and irritation. Then a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb. Out stepped this tall, well-dressed black guy, crisp button-down dark jeans, the kind of quiet confidence that turns heads. But in my mind, no way this was my date. I assumed he was there to pick someone up, maybe drop off a delivery. My eyes kept scanning the room looking for Mr. Perfect from my friend's glowing description, until he stopped right in front of me. "Excuse me," he said, warm voice with a hint of Southern in it. "Are you Claire?" I blinked, already annoyed at the interruption. "Yes. I'm Marcus." I swear my brain short-circuited. This couldn't be right. My friend knew my type, and this wasn't it, at least not by the narrow definition I'd been taught. But before I could process, my phone buzzed. It was my friend Giddy asking how the date was going. She used his name, Marcus, and it hit me like a slap. This was my date. So I plastered on a polite smile, invited him to sit, and told myself I could survive an awkward coffee. He was intelligent, articulate, even funny, but all I kept thinking about was how different our worlds were. Different social circles, different expectations, different, well, everything. A few days later, fate threw me a curveball. I'd just finished a meeting downtown. My regular car service was booked, so I reluctantly opened the Uber app. Guess who pulled up? Yep. Marcus. The ride was silent at first, but somewhere in the middle of traffic, I blurted something about different worlds and different expectations. He looked at me in the mirror and asked, "Different colors." My stomach dropped. I tried to backpedal, but he didn't let me hide behind polite phrasing. "I've heard that speech my whole life," he said quietly. "It's just a softer way of saying what you really mean." That conversation stayed with me. And then one afternoon I saw him again, this time in an alley behind my office building. A woman I recognized, Elena, who cleaned our offices, was being cornered by a landlord demanding overdue rent. She was near tears, explaining her daughter had just been in the hospital. I froze. I didn't know what to do. But Marcus, he walked right into it like he belonged there. Calm, respectful, but firm. He got her a weekend catering job on the spot, offered her free rides to get there, and when the landlord wouldn't back off, he pulled $400 cash out of his own pocket. I just stood there hidden watching it happen, and it hit me. Most people, especially in my world, would have walked away. I had walked away from situations like that before. But Marcus didn't hesitate. That night at family dinner in my parents' sprawling lakeside estate, I brought up inequality. Big mistake. My parents brushed it off, called it excuses and bad choices. My father even said everyone has the same opportunities in this country. Sitting there surrounded by crystal glasses and silver platters, I thought about Elena and how that statement couldn't be further from the truth. It took me a week, but I texted Marcus, asked him to meet me for coffee, his choice of place. He picked a vibrant, artsy cafe in a part of town I'd never been to. It was alive students hunched over laptops, musicians, tuning guitars, every kind of person you could imagine. And in that corner, Marcus told me his story. MBA from a top school. Started his own logistics consulting business because no matter how polished, his resume interviews went cold when he showed up in person. Not always, but enough to make the pattern clear. I listened as he explained how networks in business are still locked doors for people who don't look the part, how meritocracy often just means people like us hiring people like us. And for the first time, I wasn't defensive. I just wanted to understand. We made a deal that night. I'd use my connections to introduce him to potential clients, and he'd help me figure out how to run businesses that actually treat employees fairly. It felt right. Scary, but right. The real test came at the Pacific Northwest Business Leaders Summit, where I was supposed to give a safe speech on corporate social responsibility. I walked on stage with my father in the audience ready to deliver the expected talking points. But instead I told them about Jennifer, our receptionist who worked full-time yet couldn't afford childcare after a car accident. I told them about Marcus, brilliant, ambitious, shut out of opportunities he'd earned. I challenged them to stop writing checks to charity while ignoring the inequities built into their own payrolls and hiring practices. You could have heard a pin drop. My father's face went red. I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Afterward, I drove straight to Jennifer's apartment, offered her a new job, administrative manager for Marcus's business. Better pay, better benefits, room to grow. She stared at me like she couldn't believe it. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "Because everyone deserves the chance to build a stable life through their hard work," I told her. I wish I could tell you that was the happy ending, that my family applauded my courage, that the business world embraced Marcus, that every assumption I'd held dissolved overnight. But it's not that neat. My family's furious. Some friends stopped calling. And yet, I've never felt more certain of myself. I used to think success was about keeping my seat at the table I was born into. Now I'm starting to believe it's about pulling up more chairs or building a new table altogether. So I'm asking you, what would you have done in my place? Would you risk your family's approval, your social standing, maybe even your career to do what you believe is right? Or would you play it safe and keep things the way they are? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear your story.